Thanks for tuning in to SCSU Local, the show revolving around Central Minnesota. I'm your host, Nissan Brown.
And I'm Ramona Morozes. Today, SCSU Local is focusing on the Artists Guild of Central Minnesota. But first, Melissa sits down with Willis E. Tynes to see what the Artists Guild is all about.
SCSU Local starts now.
I'm Melissa Kmeyer, sitting here with the founder of the Artists Guild for Central Minnesota, Willis E. Tynes. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Melissa.
So when did you come up with the idea for the Artists Guild?
Well, it was late last year when I had attended one of the local exhibitions around town, and by that time I've gotten to know a lot of the local artists, and I've seen the quality work that they produce and how many of these artists weren't being recognized for what they were doing. And so I thought, what would be a really good idea to assist these artists in their endeavors and helping their careers to continue to grow. And I thought, hey, a guild would be something really cool because we don't have a guild in this region. So I went home and thought about it some more, and usually if an idea sticks with me, I tend to run with it. And so what I did is I sent out a random call for artists to show up and let's talk about whether this was possible, whether we wanted this to happen or not.
So what is the main goal of the Artists Guild?
The main goal of the Artists Guild is to be a resource, an educational resource and business resource for full-time working artists that are working in their field. We have established an established group of artists in our community who are conducting their art as a business. And so we wondered, okay, how can we make it better? How can we improve what they're doing? And so coming up with the guild, we realized if we were to work together as a group, we could then network, exchange ideas, and show our work together, which would then make our exhibitions a little bit stronger.
So how do the artists benefit from the Artists Guild?
Well, each of the artists that are a part of the guild, they wanted to be a part of it, and they applied, and the way that they benefit from it is the fact that they get to now rub shoulders with their peers who are also doing what they're doing, working at their art form as a business and trying to build their career. Many of these artists have found themselves somewhat maybe in a rut or wanting to find ways in which they can expand what they're doing. Well, what better way than to actually see those who are actually doing what you're doing, find out how they're having success, and try to mimic that. We also offer moral support for each other, and we find ways in which we can continue to do what we do on a full-time basis.
So how many members do you have for the Artists Guild?
Well, we started out with 8 artists back in January of this year. Now we're at 12, and we are continually growing. I found out that there's a great need for what we're doing, and people have responded very well to it. And I think as time progresses, the guild will continue to get a little bit bigger and much more stronger, and the artists will continue to thrive.
So can anybody become a member of the Artists Guild?
Well, there are some requirements to being a member. For one, you have to be a full-time working artist in your field. You need to have a professional website, and your work needs to be of a certain caliber. And so while we accept all applications from anybody that's interested, certainly all of the applications will be reviewed, and if a person meets the criteria, then they can be accepted into the guild.
So how do you become a member then?
Well, you would go to the website, artistguildofcentralminnesota.com, and you can fill out one of the applications there. The application process requires that you have your website along with 8 sample works in the last 3 years of things that you've done, and you submit that along with a resume, and we look at applications twice a year, And after, if you are considered a strong candidate, you would be notified, and then you'd be accepted.
Is there anything else you would like to mention about the Artists Guild for Central Minnesota?
The Artists Guild, we want people to see the Guild as their first choice for the purchasing or the collecting of works of art. If there's an art need, we want people to say, well, who can I go to? And we would like the Guild to be the first thing that comes to their mind. And so in that regards, we are building a patron base of local collectors who are interested in seeing their private art collections grow, see the value of art within the community and how it affects the public and how it affects our lives personally. And so that, and with that line of thought, we've decided that we will continue to strive at trying to make this work.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. SCSU Local had a chance to sit down with Willis Tynes and get to know him as an artist.
I am a oil painter and sculptor. I've been painting full-time for the last 15 years. I mostly work, my subjects are florals and portraits and seascapes. My style, though, is one that many people would term as hyper-realist, where I am trying to mimic life's details in every degree. And so when I approach a work, I approach it with the intent of trying to capture not only the feeling and the essence of the image itself, but also some of the exact details that were lingering at the moment this image was done. I mostly work from photographs. I do a lot of life sketches from life, drawings from life and things like that, to familiarize myself with my subjects a little bit more. But I found that a number of years ago I started to become a little bored with painting, so I started sculpting. I taught myself how to sculpt, and so I work in clay and then cast in bronze. I've won a number of awards for my work, locally and internationally. I find myself being inspired by many different things. I didn't grow up in Minnesota, but I've never been drawn to the Minnesota scenery. Coming from the Bahamas, everything's bright and vibrant and colorful, and that's not the case here. But if you stick around long enough, you will pick out certain things that interest you or might catch your attention. And for me as an artist, that's what happened. There are certain things like maybe a babbling brook or an old barn. Just when the light hits it at the right time of day, it's just something really cool about it. They can contact me through my website. It's Tynes Art, and I also show at a few galleries around town, some places in northeast Minneapolis, also locally here in St. Cloud. I show my work. Most of my pieces, though, are in the Bahamas, where a number of my collectors are. And so I find myself going back and forth to do that. But yeah, just contact me through my website, and you should be able to find whatever information you need there to reach me.
Now we're going to take a look at the works of artist Jessica Davis.
I'm Jessica Henry Davis, and I'm a fine artist, and I paint paintings that portray the family. I have been oil painting for about 23 years now, and I've always loved drawing, but the paintings that I do now are more representing my love for my family, and I want to put that on canvas more than anything else. I've discovered in my life that's the driving force of what I want to convey. I think that it's a universal connection people have. This painting and others, that's the message of that bond of love. I've painted all kinds of things, still lifes, landscapes, but I think what really motivates me most is people. My defining moment for realizing that I love painting families was when I started having children. And 4 babies will inspire anyone. They really are the joy of my life. The process that I use for coming up with the painting is I begin with an idea. For example, in the one behind me, that was all about, the title of the painting is "The Heart Hath Its Own Memory." And I saw this woman laying with her children, and I took a photograph. I was so inspired by that moment. It was so serene and peaceful. After I finished the painting, I found a poem, and I love to marry a poem with the painting. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is my favorite poet because of his connection to mankind. And he simplified his poems to reach common man. And so I found a poem called "From My Armchair." And the very last couple stanzas embodied everything that I wanted this painting to be about. And so that's where I got the title, and that's where I find my inspiration. I like paintings of people that are not just, a copy of the life of someone. I'd rather portray paintings that show who that person was and their life and their soul. And the methods that I use for painting are taught through, I was taught through classical traditions handed down from the masters. I went to an atelier school, and I also studied under Harvey Schroeder in Elk River. A very painterly approach. I like to paint tight but not highly polished, and I also enjoy splashing and palette knives and dribbles and allowing just some of that to play through the paint. I'm Jessica Henry Davis, and I'm a fine artist, and I paint paintings that portray the family.
Now let's take a look at artist Dan Monlock.
My name's Dan Monlock from St. Cloud, born and raised. I'm a painter, mainly in watercolor and acrylic, or water media, as it's called. My process for painting is I usually start from a photograph, and this is one that I took of a local lake. And the season is when... The landscapes is really my main thing. I like to do a lot of outdoor activities, so that's kind of, they say paint what you know, and so that's kind of a reflection of me and what I like. But I do, I do like to do portraits. I do like to do, lately I've been painting more urban scenes, cityscapes, stuff like that, and trying to branch off from just purely landscape. So
the sketch here, because you have the lightest lights next to the darkest darks, I'm trying to get a focal point here that draws your eye.
What initially drew me to painting, but I've been painting since I was 15. I'm 28 now. My dad's an artist, and I remember driving with him one time and just kind of mentioning to him that I'd kind of like to start painting. And of course he ran and got me everything I could possibly need, and just kind of caught on. I liked it, enjoyed it, and started taking classes in high school and just stuck with it. I got into the Artist Guild last spring, and the Artist Guild is a network of artists that are really looking to provide a professional network and a really high quality group of artists that the community can look to get quality art. And I was interested in that because I am looking to advance my art career, so that was a natural fit for me. And the guild really provides a lot of opportunities too, like group exhibits, and we all share information with each other. So if we know about a show or anything like galleries or anything like that, we share that. And for me, looking to really push my career, that's important for me.
Let's see John Heckman's works of art.
is John Heckman. I'm an artist, and I live in Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. I started doing art when I was very young. I was probably in about 4th grade, and people in school recognized that I had quite a bit of talent in art, and it was something that I believe I was somewhat gifted in. Actually, I was painting in oils when I was in high school, and I used a palette knife, and I laid things on pretty heavy with a lot of impasto and landscapes. I've always been fairly fascinated with different cultures, and one of the cultures that I was interested in was the Amish culture, and I thought that they'd look wonderful in watercolors, and so I just thought I would go down to southern Minnesota, and I would meet with some of the families down there and let them know I was an artist, and see about doing some paintings of the Amish, and so I got to know a number of the families down there, the Hirschberger family and the Yoders, and a couple other Millers, I guess. I believe that when you get to know other people's cultures, it broadens your own horizon, and it enriches your, you in a spiritual way. And so it was just a very positive experience. I love people. I like helping people, and I believe I've been gifted in 2 different ways, and one is being able to be a helper, and another one is to paint beautiful pictures. And so that's what I do.
SCSU Local will have more talented artists after the break.
Up to 40% of businesses never recover after experiencing a major disaster. Make a plan at ready.gov/business.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at the artist, Michelle Molina.
I am Michelle Molina. I am a painter in the oil medium, landscape, still life, and equine. I have painted for almost 45 years now, I believe, so it doesn't seem like it's been that long. But I think my skill and my experience can, attest to all those years. I'm a traditional representational painter. My inspiration came many years ago from the Hudson River painters, the French Barbizon painters, many of the early American landscape painters caught my eye, and that's what I aspired to aim my work towards. When I choose a subject to paint, the work goes a little beyond what I draw on paper, or the photograph that I reference to, or the scene that I have drawn out. At the easel, my work will always change. It starts out with one idea, but then it tends to, I tend to want to push the boundaries of the meaning of that painting. My ideas come from basically within 15 miles of where I live. They're commonplace to me. It's what I know, it's what I am very familiar with, and if I don't happen to have my camera with me, which is usually the case, I'll come home and draw that idea or something that I have seen that I really want to reference to. If I'm not actually painting, I'm at least thumbing through art magazines or I'm doing some research online. I'm always thinking about painting. It's never, that is a daily thing. Just the act of painting isn't always a daily thing.
Rebecca Mulvaney is a work of art herself, so let's get to know more about her.
I'm Rebecca Mulvaney and I live in St. Joseph. I've really been an artist since I was about 10 years old. I started taking portrait lessons. At that time, all I drew were faces. Like boys draw cars, I think girls draw faces. But in the last 20 years, I've been a fairly serious professional studio artist. In the past, there was an abandoned house in central South Dakota. I did 30 artworks on that house. The property around it, and it was a lot of fun because it was real wreck. But given that it was in rural South Dakota, I was able to get inside of it, and it'd been there for something like 40 years, abandoned, and hadn't been plowed over yet. But in the last 5 or 6 years, I've primarily done an intensive study of clouds. I started out studying storm clouds at sunset, and I love the color, and it's somewhat abstract. When I started painting, I remember the things that were important to me when I saw the scene. As a person, I feel a real closeness to nature. Reflecting that closeness that I have is something that I do with my work. And it looks pretty traditional, and my methods are pretty traditional, but I really enjoy it.
Here's Melissa Goldman of the Artists Guild.
My name is Melissa Goldman. Well, in school I was studying biology, and I took a general education ceramics course, and I was really intrigued by the processes, and I just fell in love with clay. And so I changed to a ceramics major and went on for my master's degree at SCSU and got my position at the Paramount in 1998, soon after graduating with my master's degree. And so I've been doing tile work and ceramics ever since. My personal sculpture is generally done for exhibition purposes and sales as well. And then I do a lot of tile commission work in my position at the Paramount. So we do, this tree, for example, is part of the new Civic Center expansion. And so it's architectural tile, but it's also mixed kind of sculpture too. The Paramount Visual Arts Center was commissioned to create the feature wall for the new Civic Center expansion. And it's being renamed the River's Edge Convention Center. And so I've worked with the Civic Center staff to come up with a concept that they accepted. And it's a celebration of the river coming through central Minnesota. And so we're recreating a idyllic ecosystem that will be used as an educational tool. We have a team of painters painting backdrop, and then we're sculpting several different components that will be on the feature wall as well. So we're creating a life-size bur oak tree, and we're trying to get as much realism into it as possible. So we've actually gone and collected pieces of bark and bits and branches and things, and we're using those to create texture in the clay that will help create a realistic and lifelike model. The crayfish is going to be at a little over 24 inches off the wall, And we're trying to hide some little things like that will kind of reward the careful observer. And we're trying to include as many of those types of discoveries for people who are looking. I'm really concerned about making people aware of the natural environment around them. I think that too many people now don't understand enough about our ecosystem and the native plants and species that we have here and how special they are. And so one of my goals is to help people be able to name some of the trees, plants, fish, and birds in our region so that they might be more concerned about protecting it. So that's one of the goals that I have in doing this.
Here's more on artist Joe Severin.
I'd loved art all my life, and when I was about the age of 6, I found out that you had to be dead to make a living as an artist, and I thought that wouldn't work out very well for me. So I kind of ruled it out until I got to college, and then now I spend a lot of time doing it. In 2008, I went to Ireland and did an artist residency where since then I've spent most of my time working on more abstract expressionist type paintings, sort of rebelling against most of the traditional art. I currently work in acrylic paintings most of the time, but I don't limit myself to that. In fact, right now I'm starting to work with wire on top of my paintings, but I've dabbled in a lot of different areas. Most of the time when I'm working now, it's really more a result of either meditating or an idea coming to me or something that I've experienced. So I either paint memories or I paint experiences, feelings and emotions. Recently I went skydiving, and so I started to paint an image that's sort of like the aerial view in Waseca, which is where I was. I used to draw very realistically, and I wanted pieces that were more functional and I thought told more of a story until I went to Ireland, and all these people around me were working in landscapes, so I felt the pressure to work with landscapes because it was such a beautiful landscape. And then I had a moment where I got super angry and thought, this isn't who I am. And I cleaned my palette on the canvas and I was like, yes, that's what I like. That's mine now. And then I drew on top of it, and so that kind of, after that I thought, I don't have to try to be anything else, and I felt like the colors in my work and the feeling that I'm feeling while I'm creating it is actually a little bit more open for the viewer, and it also, I think, gives them a greater sense of what I'm trying to communicate than if I actually draw something that's realistic. For me, that's true anyway. I'm hoping that the viewer gets that from my artwork.
We are now reaching the end of our show.
Thanks for tuning in to SCSU Local. To hear more of these stories, go to YouTube/SCSU Local.
See you next semester as SCSU Local focuses on more stories of Central Minnesota.